Welcome to the Brainiate Show, where we talk about all things Salesforce, sharing the coolest features, solutions, and best practices to turn you into a Salesforce rock star. Here's your host, former attorney turned Salesforce consultant and trainer, David Giller.
First of all, welcome everyone to today's session. And today we're going to be talking about, and I am partnering up today with Joy, and I'm going to have Joy Shutters-Helbing introduce herself in a moment. But we're going to be, this is open forum. We do not have a presentation of any kind. We're going to be talking about the best tips for apps that are most useful for Salesforce admins. As admins, there are so many different apps that we can utilize. There are apps that are free, that are apps that you have to pay for. There are apps that help with the behind-the-scenes configuration, the metadata in the system. There are apps that help with the user interface and data quality and really everything in between, integrating all kinds of different tools. So honestly, I think there's enough material for us to talk about apps and tips and best practices and advice about apps for many, many sessions just like this. So I'm willing to bet we're going to just scratch the surface here. But either way, Joy, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll kick it off.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. No one's in morning time, I don't think, but good. Hello, everybody. My name is Joy Shutters-Helbing, and I am, wow, where do I start? I've been playing in the Salesforce ecosystem for over 10 years. It might be 15, I'm 5-time certified. I'm a 2-time MVP. I've got one of those fancy golden hoodies. I've worked on a number of different orgs, thanks. And I don't know, I've been working on those trailhead badges. I think I hit 400 somewhere along the lines, but there's someone that hit 700 today, and I wish I remembered who it was, but it's been an amazing, amazing journey. I'm a big fan of how to make life easier for an admin as opposed to making it more complex. There's a lot of folks that'll be like, oh, just write some code. And I'm like, no, just find a way to do it. So David and I worked through this wild list of tools that you should all have in your toolbox, at least be aware of them if you're not using some of them, so that you can really, I don't know, amp yourself up, level up, and take advantage of some of the wheels that have already been invented instead of building it yourself. So David, with that.
Yeah, let's just open it up to folks talking about what, and by the way, if you're going to call out a particular app that you love, that's completely cool. I have a long list of apps that I love. But if you're going to talk about any app, you have to, along with that app, you have to talk about what problem does it solve? Like, why on earth? Let's put it within the context. Why on earth should others start utilizing or learning how to use that app? So who wants to go first?
I'm happy to
Rachel
talk about
just
some
posted
apps.
something in the chat. Sorry.
Oh.
That's top Trailblazers. No, it's not.
Is it talking to, or do you have to post something in the app? I'm not quite sure.
No. Just you can talk to it. Or if there's a particular problem that you are faced with as a Salesforce admin that you're struggling to find an app for, let's brainstorm as a group on what we think it might be best to help solve that particular issue that you're struggling with.
Okay, I've probably got about 5 apps which I put into. Some of them are free, and I just put them in to every org, and they solve some of the most amazing problems that when you Google in sales and Google, how do you do this? You get all these people saying, write some code, write a whole lot of code. Salesforce doesn't do this, do this, do that.
Okay, let's hear.
Okay, so so does anybody have any problems with Lightning email templates that you can't use email alerts with a Lightning email?
I'm familiar with, okay, so let me rephrase that for those of you who are not familiar with what Greg just talked about. If you're going to create, this happens a lot of times, especially in orgs that are, particularly in orgs that start off in Lightning. So they go ahead and they create some email templates in Lightning, and then you go to set up an email alert, like use a process builder to kick off the distribution of an email alert. And that template that you created in Lightning is not available to you. you can only, and this boggles my mind, like how this gap still exists. You have to basically recreate that email template as a classic email template, and then you can use it in the email alert. So everyone's on the same page.
And also in Classic, when you send an email alert, nothing is recorded about it. So people write a whole lot of processes to record a task or an activity. So there are two issues there, which there's a little third-party app which is not published on the App Exchange, which solves them. And it's actually put out there by some guys about 200 meters down from where I live, which was a bit of an interesting one.
Okay, so go ahead, share the secret.
Okay, so people have got that problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
I have that problem.
Right. So coming on. So can I share my screen?
Sure, you can share your screen.
Now let's see. Let me quickly share my screen. So sorry, I've got about 5 things open here. So
by the way, as Greg is doing that, I want the rest of you to also think about, because most of us might think of apps specifically. Some of us, based on what we do, we might think of apps specifically relating to managing the configuration or managing data quality or managing imports, exports in Salesforce. I know that's totally fair game. Some of us might be thinking about development focused tools, so tools that are more geared towards developers. But I also want you to think about those tools that in a way have really nothing to do with the actual Salesforce configuration, like tools associated with mapping, doing process mapping or documenting your org, or even better, training your end users, or how to communicate, forget even training, just communicating to your end users, how to go about, topic always comes up with screenshots and annotating screenshots and creating quick little videos where it's not really training, it's like bite-sized pieces of information that you want to share, let's say of one particular small feature enhancement that you just implemented, and how to go about communicating that. So there are lots of different tools that in my mind fall under this rather large umbrella of tools that can help admins.
Okay, so the question is, can you see my screen? Can you see
Yes.
a Salesforce screen?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
And it's my name's Greg Devine. So this is actually a system that's just about to go live, and I did it really quickly on a cheap. So the screen layouts are terrible. So they said, well, we'll tidy all the screen layouts up later. We just want to get online donations really quickly. So first of all, you'll see here, I've got a little button which creates a receipt, so they can generate a receipt
Greg, I
number.
thought you were going to show us about Lightning templates.
Yes, but that's driven by this button.
Oh, okay.
Here.
Okay, sorry.
Send donation receipt.
Okay.
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 Right.
Yep.
So it's driven by that. So what we've got is we've got a Lightning template set up. So I'm just going to move this stuff off my screen here. And if we come into Process Builder, what we've got here, sorry, the third-party app that we're using is one called Send Email. And it comes from an organization called Gravity Labs. And I'm just wondering, and it doesn't, so if I'll get you the link in a minute, but I'll just show you how it works. So basically, if I go to Process Builder, and there's only 4 things you have to do.
I put the link in the chat window for everyone, by the way.
And these guys don't use a sandbox, so we're doing this in production, so we're not using some of the smart things like...
Sandboxes are so overrated.
Yeah, but so there'd be some extra things you might do if you were using sandbox. So if I go to Process Builder... Process Builder... Oh, sorry. I find some of the searching, maybe it's because we're a long way away in New Zealand, is incredibly slow, and you end up typing stuff in twice because it doesn't appear. Okay, so let me, now these guys set up Process Builder, you know, years ago when it first came out, so there are obviously far too many processes for some things before it became common knowledge that you only create one process.
Hang on, Greg, I sort of want to keep it relatively light for each app that we touch on.
I'm just trying to find.
We're only going to be covering like 2 apps within the 1 hour session.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my question for you is, this send emails tool by Gravity Lab does it convert the classic templates into a Lightning version? I'm sorry, the other way around. Does it convert a Lightning email template into a classic version? How does it work?
What it does is you can either use classic email templates for doing this, or you can use lightning ones. If classic emails, you can create an alert. With lightning ones, you can't. Okay. So what it does is, okay, just to speed up time, basically, if you go to Gravity Labs website and look up send email, you'll find a set of instructions which show you what I'm about to do. You create a process, and it gives you the Apex code. You just say select send email Apex code, and you say who's the email coming from, and you can use your formulas or your references. What's the ID or the name of the email template? Is there an attachment? You put in 4 fields into the process builder, and effectively the same 4 fields that you might if you were creating an alert, and it creates the alert, etc. And so the process that we've got here is when that box gets ticked, send the email, run this process and send the email, send lightning email as an alert. But it also creates a task. I'll just show you then very quickly what's happened. So basically, this here is the email alert that was sent, and I can see that this was the email alert that was sent, the lightning email template, and it created it and put it here, so you can actually see it. It created an activity, an email thing, which Classic doesn't do. So there are 2 key things. It records the fact that this email alert was sent, which you don't get in Classic, but more importantly, it lets you send an email alert for Lightning. So it does something for each of them.
That's very, very cool.
And everything's on that Gravity Labs called Send Email.
Yeah.
And if you can't find it after this, I guess send an email to David, who can send it to me, and I'll get the actual proper link and send it to you.
I actually put the link already in the chat window.
Okay.
And Joy and I are working on a document that we're going to share with everyone that covers not only the different apps that are mentioned during the session, but also other apps that we've identified for ourselves that sort of like our favorite apps.
Yeah. So I've got a whole lot of others, but I won't cover them off now. I'll let someone else have a go. But this is something that I found incredibly
this
useful.
is great. And honestly, I knew nothing about this, so this is a win even for me personally.
Thank you.
So thank you. Who else wants to go next? A particular problem and the solution of which app they're using to solve that problem.
Well, I'll go.
Yep.
This is Eric. We have, like trying to figure out where fields go to, or, link up, or what reports, what code, what page layouts, and all that.
Yep.
There's a Field Pro app. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's pretty popular.
Yep. Actually, that's one of them that's on our list. I'm going to go ahead and go ahead. You can keep talking to it, and I'm going to share it on my screen.
So it helps, like you have a field of like, all right, if I'm going to remove this, what does it going to affect? And then it just outlines like code it's in, fields it's in, reports.
Wow.
And this is a great thing. It's like, we don't need this. You find out what it's doing, so it's great.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like dig around within your org trying to figure out where this field is related
I have
to.
needed this so many times. Oh my God, this is awesome.
Yep.
Wow.
So I'm going to put this link, I'm going to cut and paste this link into the chat window as well. And again, as I mentioned a moment ago, Joy and I are keeping track of a spreadsheet that we're going to be sharing.
Eventually share.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. That was Eric speaking, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eric
you,
at NEC.
Yes.
Cool stuff. Who wants to go next?
So I ran into an issue recently trying to launch a third-party Conga solution from a flow. I wanted to give that to my mobile users to go into document generation. But in a flow,
you can only process to catch up with you mentally. But okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that document generation runs through a custom button, but not a action, and you can only launch actions from flows. So I couldn't figure out how to URL hack it into the flow regularly, but Gravity Labs has a navigate button that you can download and install to your org that gives you an actual button that covers several different areas, whether it's navigating to using the navigation, flow navigation for next or previous, It gives you what buttons are clicked during the flow as a report back, and you can even put URLs or open up extra flows with these buttons you can put inside your flow. So anybody working with flow, it gives you that custom button right there.
I am looking for the URL for that.
Yeah, I'll see if I can pull it up. I actually found it on Unofficial SF.
Here we
in
go.
their listing.
Boris found it, and I'm trying to get to it and share it on my screen so you guys, everyone can see it. Give me 1 second over here. Gravity Labs. Nope, this one.
But with a little bit of URL hacking, I was able to take that URL from my button, put it into this button here, and then just supply it with the variables I needed out of the flow. And now I can launch that third party without having to pay for an extra automation that they wanted to sell.
Nice. Very cool. Thank you, Brandon. That's good stuff. All right, who else wants to go?
So mine's not really an app, but it's along the lines of flow. I recently found scheduled flows, and it is like life-changing.
Share your screen. I want to see what you're talking about.
Okay, so let me just log into my sandbox, and I can show you. So here's the use case, the issue that drove me here.
Wait, who makes this app?
It's not an app. It's more just part of
Process. Yeah.
Oh, a scheduled flows functionality.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe we shouldn't talk about it because you're talking about apps.
It's okay. Go ahead. So you started already. Let's go. All
right.
Hey, if it makes you an awesome admin,
Yeah.
That's
there
right.
You go. There you go.
It has changed my life, and
Air traffic controller.
Here's it. I can share my screen.
Actually, I just found it in the release notes. I'm going to cut and paste it for everyone in the.
Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, hopefully. So here's the use case. We had a time-based processes, right? And they get queued. Unbeknownst to me, when a user gets deactivated, if they're the ones running the flow, anything in that time base stops and flow errors start. So we have processes where contracts create renewal opportunities, and whoever activates the contract was the user to run create renew opportunity. So I had to figure out, I had a user leave, what am I going to do with all this stuff in the queue? So basically now on your start button of your flow, you can actually say this is a scheduled job, and you can schedule it daily, once, or weekly. Once, I don't know why you do, but whatever, weekly. And then basically you say what object and what's the criteria. So here I'm just saying 76 days prior to the end date.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And there's no renewal op already created because they could force it early if they want, and the contract's activated. And then what it does is it just creates renewal ops. You don't have to put any looping or any, well, you could put decision points. I do have one that does, but it'll automatically, for every record it finds, it will do this action. And this has been like life-changing for me.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's a
big
great tip. That's a tip. Tips and tools.
Yeah.
And by the way, Gina, I think I just figured out the use case for the once.
For once.
Is I'm thinking of it similar to like an email when you do a send later. So someone's working on a flow and they would rather initiate it like now, but now is not a good time for all sorts of reasons. So they want to delay it, like let it happen at 2 in the morning when nobody's online.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's difficult to get my hands around that. But anyway, life-changing. So I've got like 4 of them created already.
This could be one of the things that is the beginning of the end to workflows.
Exactly.
That simpler process, but the scheduled workflows.
Yeah.
This could replace that.
And I think Salesforce is going generally in the direction of away from workflows and onto either Process Builder or Lightning Flow.
Yeah, well, I agree.
But on that note,
go ahead.
Sorry, Salesforce App Exchange, Salesforce Labs, I was looking for it. They have pre-built flows. For anybody who hasn't dabbled in flows, I can't find it. I don't think it's this, but you do solution by type and flow solutions. there are pre-built flows to help you get started that you can tweak for your own business. Obviously, install it in the sandbox. But yeah, I couldn't find it. If I find it, I'll throw it in the chat and I'll let you move on.
Thank you, Gina.
Can I share one more tip here to capture the, I'm not sure if everyone knows about the fault codes in flows. So we faced into one issue wherein, so for creation of a quote, we have a button on the opportunity which creates a quote. And mostly it's a flow, screen flow behind that. But when people click on create, it used to send them an unhandled exception occurred. Please contact your administrator.
Yeah, and you're the administrator who's receiving that email.
Yeah. So it was a bit difficult because they used to see a very ugly error message. So what we did is we added a fault screen in the flow, and now we added a pre-built message that this could be the issue, that maybe your contact is not right, a big text, and below that we capture the fault error as well, the flow error as well. So when they share a screenshot with us, we don't have to go and check in the mail. Some of the time they resolve it by themselves, or we help them resolve if they are very new to it. So
yeah, thank you, Shruti. That's great.
Something I'd like to mention about scheduled flows.
Yep.
You can schedule Apex from them, and when you schedule Apex from a flow, it gets its own set of governor limits.
What do you mean? Like it's not all, doesn't call, each one hits a limit as opposed to the whole thing? Is that what you're saying?
The Apex that you call, whatever code that is, get its own set of governor limits.
Rather than piggybacking on the flows governor limits, it'll have its own.
Right. That's what I thought I said, but I guess I wasn't clear. But you're in the air, right? Are you on a ship or air traffic controller? What are you? This is very interesting.
I pick a few interesting Salesforce backgrounds.
Oh, is that
I
what
was
it
doing
is?
these, I should say virtual backgrounds. I'm sorry. And I've had a few from Starship Enterprise, so I decided let's use one from the Carrier Enterprise.
Interesting. God, that's fun.
I found all the toilet paper.
I know. Just don't throw it in the ocean.
Stole it from David.
Yeah.
You know, one that I found that I didn't realize, you know, we all know Data Loader, but Data Loader IO, and you know, you can use that for free, you know, just managing your time, but it's great for those spreadsheets where I need to relate it to a user and I don't have to go in and put their IDs because it looks up.
I agree with you 100%, Brandon. There are actually a lot of reasons why I love dataloader.io, and I'm super curious to see if and how the product evolves now that it's under the Salesforce umbrella as a Salesforce product. But so to Brandon's point, and yes, what he said is exactly 100% true, but I found myself relying on the matching of, so if I need to do, whether it's an update or an upsert of records, so someone gives a spreadsheet. We all know as admins, when we're getting a spreadsheet from someone in sales, marketing, whatever, nobody's cleaning it up. Nobody's even looking if there are duplicates within that spreadsheet itself, let alone if there are duplicates between that spreadsheet and back in Salesforce. And what dataloader.io allows you to do, if there are people represented in your spreadsheet, you can simply use the email address field, or maybe even the mobile number field that's in the spreadsheet, to leverage that as if it was an external ID to if it finds the same record, if it finds a record with that same either email address or mobile number or any other field that you want, honestly, it will perform that update or upsert, whatever you need. I've even found at the company level, at the account level, many times you're given a spreadsheet and you've got all sorts of variations of like Wells Fargo spelled in all kinds of different funky ways. And honestly, there are many divisions of Wells Fargo. Like not every instance of Wells Fargo should be the same one account. but at the very least, you as the admin can do a little bit of due diligence by doing a lookup based on an exact match of the account name. If it's an exact match, then just go ahead and do an update or an upsert at that. So to Brandon's point, yes, it's absolutely wonderful if you're doing an update like as a lookup to any attribute on the user, but it could be any attribute on any record anywhere in Salesforce, which is pretty awesome.
I only use Data Loader IO as an absolute last resort.
Why is that?
Why is that? Because a tool I've been using since 2012 called Apsona for Salesforce, APSONA, I can do things in a fraction of the time I do in Data Loader.
Okay.
And there may be some things that Data Loader does that I'm not doing, but in terms of mass update, import, export, for example, when you do an import, you can say, what are you matching on? And yes, the standard match on ID, but then you can actually concatenate and say, actually, just by drag and drop, I want to match on email address plus zip code plus.
Yeah, you can't do that with dataloader.io. So I'm with you, totally with you.
Yeah. So again, I don't really know data. It's just I'm used to, it's a tool. It's like you said before, I'm used to Apsona, so I can make it sing and dance. And maybe, I guess the one reason is I've got a customer who has got the full version, the $250 a month, whatever it is of Data Loader, and that's what they use because I'm just one of many in a team, and I do all my stuff in Apsona. And it probably saves me mass updates. To do a mass update, they do an export and an import. Well, obviously, in Apsona, I can do a mass update straight in the grid. So that's the extra bit which I find in there. And you can, in your grid in Apsona, before you do your mass update, you can pull your data back from, multiple related objects and all sorts of things. So it's probably the mass update which I find it's quicker than Data Loader because you don't have to do both the export and the import.
Is it free for nonprofits or not?
It's free. It's free for nonprofits if their turnover is under $250,000 a year.
That's just like demand tools. That's funny. I've been using, if you work for a company like mine that won't spend any money, and you desperately need something like Find ID and that you get with demand tools, I found one that's got a really strange name. You can only download it from GitHub, but it's called Find ID when you install it, but it's called Yes Report IDs and Values.
Yeah, I saw someone bring up Excel Connector. That's free for nonprofits.
Yes.
So yes Report IDs and Values allows you to look up, unfortunately, only up to 500 records at a time, but you can you can use any field to match. Of course, you're better off with like an an email address or something that's going to be more of a constant than a name or something. And it has some quirks, but it's something, if you really desperately need, because I get external spreadsheets all the time that people want me to find in Salesforce, and this helps a lot.
How I approach that issue with small nonprofits is I actually say to them, look, you're getting your 10 licenses for free from Salesforce. That's great. You're saving $25,000 a year. You don't have to pay. I said, you're using me as a consultant to set stuff up. You have to pay the $395 or whatever it is, $295 a year for Apsona for Salesforce, because it's going to save you so much consulting time from me and importing and exporting and mass updating, and you're going to save that. I said it's less than a coffee a week. All those sort of arguments say, look, just buy it. We'll find another consultant. I don't say it quite like that, but generally, I've only got one that hasn't brought it, and I spend so much extra time importing, mass updating, etc. So. Yeah.
Also with
and the beauty is they also give a 30-day free trial. So not a 7-day or a 14. They give a 30-day free trial. So how do I say? Is your recording off? Of course, if you're doing a big job, you get the 30-day free trial and do lots of importing, exporting, mass updating, changing your database around. But generally, even after the 30-day free trial, I find most people end up buying it because I say, look what we achieved with it.
also with Appsona, they have another product that you can add on to it that's called multi-step reporting. And what that offers is the ability to kind of pivot your data across columns versus right now, if you kind of try to look at one object, you'll get multiple rows for similar type data. But with the multi-step reporting, you're able to pivot your data and transpose it into columns versus rows.
Do you work for a nonprofit too? I'm looking at the pricing, so it's like $180 per user per year.
To keep in mind, Karen, that
No, but it's only the admin who needs it. It's only the admin who needs it.
Just says per user per year. I didn't know if it was like demand tools. They charge you for all your users when only you're using it.
No, look, most of my organizations get it's a minimum is 3 users, and
Okay.
we cope really well with 3 users. In fact, sometimes it's only one person every user, the admin, really.
Yeah, it's only $540 a year for up to 3 users. That's actually very cheap.
Yes.
That's very cheap.
But
That
the
would-
other things
that
that were
might
added,
fly.
and they've got some add-ons like the reporting one. They've also got a document add-on, which is a fraction of the price of the Conga. It doesn't do everything Conga does, but does a couple of things that Conga doesn't do, which is always so some people have that.
Oh yeah,
as well.
email and document merge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's cover. So there's a bunch of other topics that have been coming up in the chat, and 2 of them which are really big substantive topics, which can warrant quite a bit more discussion than we even have time for. But let's at least touch on them, and I'm very curious to hear what people think. So the first one is mass emails. So the question is, what are the different options for doing mass emailing from Salesforce? So first I'll tell you what my experience is on the topic, then I'm totally open it up to anyone. So let's sort of go back historically, because I think this is really important. It was, I want to say, about off the top of my head, maybe 8 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, where Salesforce was not in the marketing automation space. So Marketing Cloud did not exist. Pardot was not owned by Salesforce. And there were many other marketing automation tools like HubSpot and Marketo and Mailchimp and Constant Contact, and I can keep going on and on. Salesforce had an open API, and a bunch of these tools had APIs that worked with Salesforce, and basically a company can choose whichever one they wanted, and it would work beautifully in terms of not only being able to build your distribution list from within Salesforce, initiate the distribution to happen through that other marketing automation tool, and then have the results, the bounce back click-through open metrics from that marketing automation tool come back and reside natively in Salesforce. That's what the world used to be like before Salesforce went ahead and purchased ExactTarget, renamed it to Marketing Cloud, and purchased Pardot. Now that Salesforce has done that, they've turned off those wonderful APIs that used to be leveraged. By the way, Marketo used to be probably the biggest vendor that would have a biggest presence at like Dreamforce. They used to give out these big blankets to like every Dreamforce attendee. It was a little insane. And when Salesforce did this, Marketo basically stuck up their middle finger and like, yeah, we're out of here. And they're
still the best one. It's too bad. It's still the best. I've used them all. It's the best one. It's too bad.
So today we're all in a space where what I personally have found is that the only tools that are really going to give you that holistic 360-degree metrics of the bounce back click-through open results of your email distributions, it's really only going to be Marketing Cloud or Pardot. However, there are many, many companies that for all kinds of reasons, and I get it, whether it's pricing or user interface, or they have someone else decided that they're using Mailchimp or Constant Contact or Marketo or HubSpot, whatever it is, that they're still using those other tools. They have zero interest in moving off of those tools. So with that in mind, I'll sort of open it up to everyone else. What has been your experience and what are your thoughts about doing mass email distributions with other tools that integrate with Salesforce?
So I've used Campaign Monitor. It's embedded within the Salesforce platform, or it can stand alone as well. It's simple. It does your basic email blast component. The user experience in terms of managing your list is not the best, but it gets the job done. And it also gives you access to Sokal if you want a little bit more complex record selection, but it's lightweight, and the pricing wasn't too bad for nonprofit. So it worked out well.
Awesome. That's great. Anyone else? Someone mentioned Mailchimp. I'm curious if anyone wants to talk about their experience using Mailchimp and like whether they would recommend it. I'm not looking to either bash nor endorse. I'm just, it's an open discussion, sharing best practices and experiences.
I used it
And
for a nonprofit that's in my area. As I was a consultant at the time, and they already had it. And their service is email only, and they're in another part of the world. So you have to wait 24 hours every time you have a question, and they send it back with a limited answer. And then you have to ask for clarification. You got to wait another 24 hours. So that in itself was frustrating. I don't know if they've fixed a lot of the weird quirks problems that it had back then. In other words, you know how when you had a visual force section on your record, and if it was, I think it would say something about it can't find the object. I forget what the term is, where there was like an error because it's something about S object, something that users are never going to understand.
okay.
And that would appear if that record, that lead or their contact was not subscribed to any mailing lists. So that's what you get. Some ugly Apex error. So that wasn't very nice. But there was a bunch of other things that, and I'm sorry, I don't remember, it was probably 3 years ago that I had. And I'm hoping that they fixed a lot of those problems. Anybody more recent?
So I'll tell you that I personally use Mailchimp. So like the emails that I send out, like newsletter emails, the invites to sessions like this, the reminders and everything, I personally am using Mailchimp. But I have personally found that the integration between Mailchimp and Salesforce, as far as I'm concerned, it's non-existent. It's garbage. Like if someone has had a positive experience with it, I am eager to learn how to do it better. But for me, I'm still using Mailchimp. First of all, Mailchimp is way cheaper than Pardot.
Yeah.
And secondly, for my purposes, I really truly don't need, I would like to have an integration so I can see everything in one place, but I don't truly need that integration. Like seeing the bounce back click through open metrics is really not important to me from within Salesforce. So that's okay. That's not a big deal. So for me, like, it's fine. It's not the perfect world, but Mailchimp really does really well what it does. So the email distribution and having the reports about each email distribution to be able to then segment from, let's say, from this email, for example, just even you guys have all experienced it. 15 minutes prior to the onset of this meeting, I set up an automated email, and I set it up way in advance. And basically I set up a segment. As soon as someone registers for this meetup, I have them get included in a particular Mailchimp group, a segment. And then I set up a rule for a separate email distribution that happens 15 minutes to the start of this meetup, that anyone who is in the following group, automatically include them in the following email distribution that should happen on this date and time. Done.
Disappointed.
Say it again, Manny?
I said I'm disappointed. I thought you emailed me personally.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so that's my experience with Mailchimp. So, like again, I'm telling you very transparently, it totally works as it relates to the integration with Salesforce. If a client turns to me and says, "Can you help me to integrate Mailchimp with Salesforce?" I'm like, forget it. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So when I worked with that nonprofit, they definitely had the integration, and God,
There is technically an integration. On the App Exchange, there is an integration.
But there was that list, the email lists or whatever that would sync back and forth, and it had some logic in it that you could set up that I really did like, that you could filter out, but it was limited compared to somebody that had been using Marketo, and then I start using Mailchimp.
Right, Marketo and Mailchimp, yeah, skateboard and full blown car, yeah. So.
Night and day.
So for me, one of the key things with integration with emails, and I've tried all sorts of systems, forget about the system, it's actually the fact that many of my customers have multiple email addresses. And
okay, that's a valid, yeah. Greg, I think you froze.
Does he have?
I think he was mid-sentence.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
I think. Oh no, it was Derek that walked away, but
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, what? Come on, look at your background.
We lost him.
That's where all the toilet paper went, Derek.
Yeah.
He stole it
got
from
this from
Derek's
David, by the way.
David's warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
No, I was going to say, I've used the Mailchimp integration quite a few times, and it's decent. The only thing that I found isn't useful about it, if you're talking about a simple integration, is really the fact that you don't get the opens, you don't get the key analytics.
Yes.
You can get field updates on the contacts as far as like email opt-outs and stuff like that, but you can't get anything more than that from like a high level.
Yeah.
So we built, instead of using the integration, we used a product called Integromat, which is like MuleSoft, really powerful but really cheap, called Integromat. And it's quicker for us. We use it for all our integrations back and forth between different systems. And it was quicker to build a decent looking Mailchimp integration using Integromat than actually.
Oh, so it's like a
Mailchimp.
Zapier or a Workato. It simply connects. It looks like it connects multiple tools.
Wow,
way more powerful than.
way more powerful and cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, and Integromat's amazing. We've linked our entire like automated quotes through to automated invoices. The whole cycle gets integrated through, and we're driving all our discounting. It's I think it's an Israeli company, really impressive. And we've been using that for a whole range of areas. Whilst we're on the subject of email though, think about what's happening around data privacy now. So the only place where you can start tracking and the master data for all of your mailings cannot be in your marketing system anymore. It has to be in one central place, which is Salesforce. So the idea of going, oh, I've got my mailing lists inside Mailchimp, Marketo, whatever, that's now the wrong place. Because your permissions have to be in one place, and your permissions are going to come from customer success, from legal, from sales, from marketing. So now you want to integrate them. They've all got to be in one place. And that was GDPR in the UK, but now CCPA, and that, unless we start moving to the world which says the center of our permissions has got to be Salesforce, all customers are going to get caught out on this. I'll put a link to the, I wrote an article a while ago about how you do this, how you could build it yourself, not how you build a product, but how you build it yourself. It had something like 16,000 views. Interesting, very few people, loads of people read it, very few people have done anything about it. But over time, as the fines kick in, more and more people have to do it. It's about 7 objects as the Apex code, but you've got to do it if you've got any level of compliance.
Love that.
So, Ian, I don't want to get into a big discussion on this because that's not what we're meeting about, but you just said something about, where you're storing your contacts. I mean, HubSpot, Marketo, all of these work by storing all of these people in these systems and then deciding who comes into Salesforce. Are you saying that laws are saying, no, you can't do that anymore?
If you want to comply with those regulations correctly,
I'm sure they do.
I can take Ian's
one
point.
Central view of where. So bear in mind, those permissions are not just marketing permissions. You'll get permissions because legal signs you up as a contractor because you're now a customer. Sales are now making outbound calls. Your success team are reaching out. It's not just marketing anymore. You want one place where you've got all those permissions.
So Karen, to Ian's point, if particularly in a larger organization, but the truth is it could happen in smaller organizations also. If someone is in sales and if someone is in customer service and they reach out to a customer and the customer to talk about something, to talk about a customer service issue, to talk about purchasing of products, and the customer says, oh, by the way, can you take me off of that damn list? I'm sick and tired of getting those emails. If that person does not have access to HubSpot, Marketo, Mailchimp in order to to capture that opt-out preference, or if there isn't an integration to capture it in Salesforce and push that into Mailchimp, HubSpot, Marketo, etc. That's the issue that Ian is talking about, where if it's exclusively in some other marketing automation tool, and it's not connected to Salesforce,
Oh,
you have people
okay.
other than marketing who are interacting with the customers and prospects. There are other attributes that are being captured in the day-to-day course of business that are more likely than not, they're not getting fed back in. They're not, everything is not
Right.
in sync.
I get it. I know we're an opt-out society, not an opt-in. So meaning you
But
can
for
buy lists.
GDPR, so you're right, Karen, but for GDPR, we don't know who we're working with. We don't know who
Well,
we're
true.
interacting with.
And I mean, this is something every company needs to understand, that they can't have reps working off Excel and calling people and not telling us that we need to check opt-out in Salesforce or whatever. Right, exactly. Good point.
We're an opt-in society. We're not opt-out.
We're an opt-out. Where are you?
No, you're not. You're not.
When
You're
did it
not.
change?
What?
When did it change?
When did it change? The moment you had any customer in your database, like me, I live in the US, but I'm a UK national.
No, I mean, when did that change? Because, I mean, I've been doing it for years, but it's always been.
25th of May, 2019.
Oh, so it was just last year.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
In Europe, the GDPR is live and kicking a few years now.
So you're saying that if people are grabbing a bunch of contacts out of, Zoom Info or all these places and they're emailing them,
It doesn't even have to be Zoom Info. It could be the customer filled out a sign up for the newsletter form, or the customer, it's a person who inquired about a particular product and all of a sudden they're getting your newsletters.
No, I'm saying right now, people buy lists all the time and they'll contact people. And yes, the minute they say, take me off your list, you can't contact them again. But when he said we're an opt-in society, it sounded like they have to give us permission to be contacted in the first place. So you can't buy lists anymore.
To be clear,
correct.
To be clear with all those regulations in Europe, you have to be an opt-in.
Nobody knows
you
this.
have to be an opt-in, and soon in California you have to be. But it doesn't say global you have to get.
Jeff, the issue is, it's not about whether you're in Europe or not. The issue is actually if you have anyone in your database who happens to be an EU member. So it's not about what country you live in.
Okay, so my company only does US, but still, it's good to know so that, if we're a global company, we can't just do an email blast to everybody from a list we just bought.
By the way, here's a module on Trailhead that you can learn GDPR basics.
What's that?
Right. So this is a big issue, right? And so it's like if anyone's an EU member, it applies, and whether you know that or not, it doesn't matter.
No, I get
applies.
that. Yeah.
Right. So David just posted the Trailhead for the privacy law basics, and there's a ton of learning there. And I know that Ian, your article I read last year, and you remember if I reached out to you because the company I was working for at the time had some huge issues around it. And they chose not to take any of my advice, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not there anymore. So but we've got what? Oh my gosh, Dave, we have like less than 10 minutes left. Are there any other tools that we need to go through?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was quite a bit of discussion in the chat earlier. I think Derek is the one who initiated it regarding surveys. I think this is another very substantive one. So there are a lot of different tools, including now Salesforce has an offering for Salesforce surveys. There are a lot of different tools that can offer survey functionality. And I guess the question, what I personally have found is that similar to many other issues, just like when we initially kicked off this discussion, in order to choose the right tool, you first need to figure out what is it that we're trying to accomplish. And also initially, the business requirements at the onset might seem very, very small, very linear, like just one use case. And if we choose a solution based on exclusively that one use case and nothing else, you're going to be ruling out some other options. So Derek, I think you were the one who brought it up, right?
Yeah, I did. And the reason I kind of brought it up was because we had a particular use case where we had some customers that we wanted to reach out to and get feedback on a particular product or solution for an energy-based company. So we just wanted to get some feedback on 3 or 4 or 5 questions that we had. So something simple, but like you said, it depends on the use case.
So yes, some folks have mentioned in the chat, there's Form Assembly. There's also, Form Assembly is absolutely a great tool. There's another tool that some of you might not have heard of. Well, there's also Form Stack, Robert just mentioned. There's also Form Titan. And Form Assembly, I've never used Form Stack, so I really can't talk to it.
I do. I use it now.
Okay, awesome. So Form Assembly, I have definitely used. Form Assembly is, by the way, there's also Get Feedback, there's SurveyMonkey. Each one has different levels of integration of how well they integrate with Salesforce.
There was PySync too, but that got bought by HubSpot.
Yeah. So there's also ClickTools. That's actually the first tool that I used for surveying with Salesforce. There's also Qualtrics that integrates with Salesforce. So most of these tools have a very, I'll put them in the category of a Google Forms type of interface, where it's super easy, almost idiot-proof, not to be insulting, but a little bit idiot-proof in terms of the user interface. It's so easy to add questions and build out your form. But that level of simplicity also usually means that there's not that much in terms of the power behind those tools. Personally, I found that Form Titan it does not have the simplicity of the user interface whatsoever. If you're going to compare to a Google Forms versus Form Titan is like you're going into the cockpit of an airplane and there are buttons and levers everywhere. And there's quite a bit of a learning curve in order to even feel comfortable in Form Titan, but it is insanely more powerful than any of the other form building tools that I personally have found. But again, depending on the use case, that might be overkill, depending on what the organization needs and whether or not they intend for someone who's relatively non-technical to be building and maintaining forms. Form Titan is going to feel like shooting a fly with a cannonball. And those kind of organizations would rather have something like a SurveyMonkey that's very, very simplistic, very basic. They don't want or need anything else, but the functionality is more limited. So that's my take on it. You guys share your experiences on form building surveys.
I've been building forms for years, and Form Assembly was always a go-to, and I've tried. You've got to remember, I am the administrator for, say, a dozen accounts. So whereas what you said was really good. If it's an internal person in the account having to manage the forms, some of these form builders, the really powerful ones, are complex. It's like having a pilot. So if you don't have access to a pilot, maybe you got to stick with something really simple, but you can't fly from LA to San Francisco. You can only jump off a little short distance. What I have found with Form Assembly, I was an advocate of Form Assembly. Like Apsona, I used to say to all my customers, look, not quite sure what you want to do, but I suspect you're going to have to invest in Form Assembly. 2 years ago, when I came across Form Titan, I put that up there with the 2 or 3 apps I've found in 15 years that are have got geniuses building them. Their support is outstanding, their price is reasonable, and their functionality is absolutely amazing. I can sit there with a customer and say, I think we can probably do that in Form Titan, and you find you can't. I contact Form Titan, and 2 days later, it's in the next release. So I can't speak highly enough of Form Titan, but I absolutely agree with David about, it's got so many buttons that sometimes you're not even aware of what you can do. And it's what I say to all my customers now, just don't question it. Even your single use case for what you're going to want to do in the future, use Form Titan. And I can't speak highly enough of it. And again, I say to people, have a look at it. Don't expect to learn it when you're looking at it, but at least have a look and get a feel for it. And David, at some stage, I keep thinking that I probably should do a webinar and show a use case of an organization. We run a school fair using Form Titan, okay? We manage 700 volunteers come in, all online, they interact. The stall managers all update their equipment. We've got thousands of interactions have all just disappeared and are all automated through the use of Salesforce and Form Titan. But the trick I find with all of these forms is you can modify them out in the form tool, but sometimes do an extra step so that it's variables in Salesforce that let you modify them. Like how do I put it? So that I've had one user, for example, I'm working with at the moment, who's just swapping over from form assembly, and they're saying, but we'll have to learn form Titan so we can go in and modify the forms and add out and training options. Say, no, you don't. All you do is in Salesforce, you say, this training option is current, and form Titan goes and looks it up and picks it up automatically. So I've actually convinced them they don't need to go near form Titan as a tool. They just do everything in Salesforce, and it's dynamically updating their forms all the time.
And that goes directly to Andrea's question. So Andrea put a question in the chat regarding the reporting capability of some of the survey tools. So depending on what tool you choose, the data may or may not be residing in Salesforce in the end. So depending on what tool you select and the way that it integrates with Salesforce, you might have a unique identifier in Salesforce to bring you directly back to that survey response that came in from the other tool. So you could see it maybe like as an iframe directly on the same screen, or maybe in a separate browser window. But depending on other tools and their integration capability, it could be residing as native Salesforce data as if that web visitor logged into your Salesforce and typed it in themselves. So, and that's one of the many different things that the admin needs to consider, the organization needs to consider before choosing which survey tool is most appropriate. Because, to Greg's point that he made before, when it comes to Form Titan, if the organization is not looking to have a Form Titan expert or a Salesforce consultant or a developer go ahead and log into Form Titan in order to make updates to the existing form, it needs to be, it's going to be someone who's not technical, someone who basically has the skill set to create or modify a Google form. Like schools is a perfect example. It might be a teacher, it might be a school administrator, it's not a very technical person. Then a tool that is more technical, like Form Titan, could be a little bit too intimidating for them. But it's a trade-off between functionality.
Yeah, it's it's the same. I think it's two sides of the coin, because, well, we're using the Form Titan, and sometimes we're calling the support saying, well, I think it's reasonable that we could have this and that and that, and the support says, oh, okay, well, we're thinking about it, and just, well, we call Benny and say, hey, Benny, what do you say? What do you say? We'll put this in the app, and well, reasonable, and then it's in the app. so that's how it becomes so complex.
Right. That's true.
So on
Derek,
the other side of it,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Derek. What was that?
No, it certainly does. So I guess my question to kind of finish this off would be, what would be if Form Titan's the advanced survey tool, what would be the simple recommended?
I would say
tool?
that other category is where you're going to find tools like Form Assembly, Get Feedback, SurveyMonkey, like those kinds of tools.
Get Feedback is very simple.
Yeah.
We had school, graduated that not technical people using Get Feedback. Very easy to start and do.
And by the way, with Get Feedback, I would say Get Feedback probably has the slickest looking screens.
It does, and it plays so nice with Salesforce.
Yes.
Really nice.
So
that's always my thing.
For many organizations, that's way more important than having the data reside wherever.
Right.
Like they're willing to sacrifice functionality for having that elegant user interface, not only for the customer prospect who's receiving that survey, but also for anyone internal who's not technical who needs to go ahead and modify that survey.
Right. I agree.
So it's a hard trade-off, and that's why for us as admins, like, it's both a blessing and a curse to be in the positions that we're in, because we're being asked by the organization to help out, to make some of these decisions. They're not easy decisions to make, but at least we can help to facilitate the conversation in the right way.
Yeah, that helped significantly. Appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. We're by the top of the hour. I'm sorry, what was that?
Is Derek, are you in a jail cell?
Yeah, I had to change my background. Needed a change in scenery.
I get it. I'm getting a kick out of all these backgrounds.
Derek felt that
make
everyone
available.
is getting jealous staring at him because of all the toilet paper that was behind him.
I know, but Zoom is obviously very creative and has a great sense of humor.
Yeah. All right. Since it's at the top of the hours, we're actually a little bit over. We're going to wrap it up. On behalf of Joy and I, thank you all for
Thank
joining.
you so much for this.
This was great. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Bye-bye.
You too.
Thanks a lot for all the info.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.